Hey there, fellow travelers. Mark here with Wolters World, and today we're here in Budapest, Hungary, Magyar. And today we're going to talk about what you should know before you come here to Hungary. And I know a lot of tourists actually just come to Budapest, and that's totally fine. This city is awesome. And we've got plenty of videos on helping you with Budapest. But what we want to talk about today is just kind of some general things you should know before you come to Hungary so you're better prepared, okay? And I think the important thing to start with is actually the language here. And now you notice I said Magyar. So Magyar is actually Hungary in Hungarian. Now, I know I'm butchering how it sounds, but you'll see it all over the place. That's Hungarian. And you're like, wait, that doesn't even look anything, like I can't even see how that could even relate to Hungary. Like, you know, Ungaria and Ungarn and Hungary, all kind of, yeah, I can see how they're all the same country. But Magyar? How the hell did you get that from Magyar to Hungary? Well, here's the thing. The language here is in its own special group. It's in a really, really different language group. And the thing is, it's extremely difficult to learn. And for a tourist, it's extremely hard to actually speak or learn. So what I just want to let you know is, you're not going to understand the language here. You're not going to figure any of these things out. I mean, you can learn like servus, which is like thank you. And, you know, if you say nusunum, which is thank you, nusunum, like that'll be nice. You know, people are like, oh, thanks, you're at least trying, very nice. But you really don't have to worry about it, because if you're in Budapest or any place with lots of tourism, they speak English. I mean, anyone under 35 or 40, they've had English in school. And so you have a lot of really good English here. So that makes life a lot easier, okay? Now, the next thing I want to talk about when you come here is a lot of people want to know about the money. Well, in general, Hungary in general is actually a pretty cheap place to visit. I mean, it's very affordable to go places. Budapest, obviously, as the capital, is the most expensive place, but even here you get some really good prices, so it's not too bad. But if you're going outside of Budapest, the prices drop significantly, so you can have a really great nature vacation here and go and see some of the other towns and Roman ruins and castles and palaces and stuff around the country for a fraction of the price of going to Austria or Switzerland or Germany or something like that. So that's really cool. Now, in terms of the money, they don't use the euro here. They're in the European Union, but they don't use the euro. They have the forint, the Hungarian forint. You'll see it HUF, and it's, you know, at the time of filming, it's about 300 to 1 to the US dollar, or 300 to 1 to the euro, around there. So the numbers get a little bit crazy. So when you are exchanging money, make sure you're paying attention to the money you're getting so you have an idea. And in terms of the money issues I see here, one, the exchange houses here, a lot of them will say like 0% commission or whatever. Usually they're giving you a bad rate, so do pay attention with that. Your probably best bet is to actually just go to an ATM and get your money out there. But when you're at the ATMs, be careful, because a lot of the ATMs will give you like really, really high amounts on the first page. Make sure you click other amounts and then put a lower number in, because you don't need 400,000 forints when you're here, okay? So just have a heads up for that one. Also, never, ever, ever, ever take the conversion if they offer to let you pay in dollars or euros, because they will nail you. Like, they will give you such a bad exchange rate, it is not worth it, okay? Now, speaking of money stuff, you probably want to go out to eat, you're going to spend the money. Where am I going to spend my money? Well, on the food here, right? And the food, I mean, we have a whole video on the best dishes here to have when you're in Hungary, but like some of the foods, just realize, paprika and sour cream will come into effect in a lot of the foods here. So, some foods to have. Goulash is a very big thing. You know, the meat and veggie stew kind of stuff with paprika, you know, peppers in it. You have fisherman's soup, which is a fish soup that you're gonna have. There's all kinds of chicken paprika, like basically cream and paprika sauce with any kind of meat. You have a lot of really heavy food when you're here. Now, if you want something lighter, you can get like their pancakes, which is a pancake, and then it's like stuffed with meat. I really like those as well. And there's only a little bit of paprika sauce on that one, so that's one thing there. But you're gonna have a lot of food. It can be very heavy. So what I recommend is if you get a palinka, which is the schnapps afterwards, have one of the fruit schnapps they have. I like the plum. I also like the apricot one. It really helps the digestion to help you out there, because the food can be very heavy here, okay? So have a heads up for that. And when you are at the restaurants, I guess I should talk about service. Service here is a bit slow, okay? Now, it's friendly and they're helpful and they'll tell you what to order, and they'll probably speak some English too, but it'll take a while to get your menu. It'll take a while to get your food. It'll take a while for them to come get your other order after that. So always be ready to order when you're here, because it just takes time. Now, like I said, they're friendly, so don't get upset by it, but just know it takes some time. And also, you do tip. Like here in Budapest, you're tipping about 15% on top of your bill as well. And when you're paying, you know, some places in Budapest might take euros and cards and stuff like that, but it's not always the case. So make sure you do have some forints with you just in case, all right? Now, other things you might want to know about is, like we talked about service, what about the people? Well, the people in Hungary are pretty outgoing, they're pretty fun, a lot of them speak English, and that's what's funny is the service frustrates you, but the people are actually pretty okay, so that's kind of a nice thing there. Now, another thing I want to talk about when you're here, and what a lot of people ask is, Mark, what about Wi-Fi? What about cell phone stuff? What about, you know, do I get my 5G or 4G, or what do I get when I'm I'm there. Look, I've seen Wi-Fi all over the place, so you do have that. Restaurants we've gone to, they're like, oh, do you want the Wi-Fi password? So if you need to get Wi-Fi, probably the restaurant you're going to go to or cafe will have that in the bigger cities. Obviously in smaller towns and rural areas, maybe not. What I have seen is, when you're using your phone and you want to, upload your Instagram, because you will, because there's some cool shots here, you won't have too much of a problem. I've had 4G the entire time I've been here. No drop signals, phone calls have been fine, so that's helpful. Obviously in more rural areas there might be some issues, but overall you're not in too much trouble there. Anyway, there's a lot of tourists coming, there's a big tour group coming, so I'll finish this video in another part of town. So now we're here on the Pest side of Budapest, okay? So Buda's got the castle, Pest has the other side, like St. Stephen's Cathedral, the Hero Square and stuff like that, the House of Terror Museum. They have that stuff over here. Anyway, so other stuff you need to know when you come to Hungary. Another thing you got to think about is transportation. How are you going to get all over the place? How are you going to get within cities and stuff like that? Hungary has an extensive bus system, extensive train system, so you're not going to have any problems getting anywhere, like any small towns or big cities and stuff like that. That's not a problem. One thing I will say, though, is a lot of times you actually just have to go through Budapest when you're going to go into places on the train, because it's actually faster to go back to Budapest and then head out than taking like some of the side train lines, just to have a heads up for that. So it might seem like you're hub and spoking out to Budapest a lot. If you don't do the train route, there's plenty of buses that go all over the country, so you have that as well. In the cities, you have very extensive, usually pretty extensive bus systems to take you places. They're usually really cheap too, so no problems there. Always make sure you're validating tickets and buying your tickets. Don't just try to like skate by and not get them, because they are really affordable. Also, if you're in the bigger cities, some of them have the buses, some will have trams. Here in Budapest, they've got a metro you can go on. Always make sure you validate your ticket on the metro here in Budapest. They have checkers all over the place. So it's like, oh, look at this cool old-fashioned metro. And then the guy's like, is your ticket? Give me your ticket. Why isn't it validated? So make sure you're always validating on the tickets anywhere you are. So it's pretty easy to get around. A lot of people want to take taxis when they go places, or Uber. Well, there's no Uber here in Budapest, okay? But there are plenty of taxis, but do be careful, because probably the most dubious part of coming to Hungary is actually the taxis. So make sure you actually are, asking your hotel if they can book a taxi for you. You're using only like taxi companies versus the freelancer taxis you might see like here in Budapest. So do have a heads up for that. But otherwise, it's pretty simple to get around. So the next thing I want to look at when you do come here to Hungary is accommodation. Where are you going to stay when you're here? Look, there's plenty of hotels and hotel options and hotel-like options when you are here in Hungary. Obviously, Budapest is going to have the most options, obviously. But when you're going places, you'll find plenty of hotels. There's hostels all over the place as well. But what I've seen is actually pretty nice is there's a lot of Airbnb stuff. Because in Hungary, like I remember coming here 20 years ago, and there are people on the train saying, hey, do you need an apartment? You want to come rent my room? They've been renting out their apartments, their rooms here, like the Airbnb system, for decades. So that it's kind of a pretty developed system. So you'll be able to get, apartments and stuff like that pretty simple, because there's so many out there. So that's something I kind of really recommend. If you do an apartment rental, make sure you have a way that like, hey, how do I get there? How do I get back? Because sometimes taxis, like I said, aren't as helpful. They might be like, why would I take you here when I can get 10 rides here downtown? So just have a heads up for that one. Also, the hotels here, if you're coming from the US and you're used to those big hotel rooms, you can get a double. Usually you get a double room here. I mean, it's two like single beds together size, like a double bed size, and that's it. It's not two beds, okay? Sometimes it might be two single beds, but just know it's gonna be limited in rooms. So if you're bringing your family, I really do recommend the Airbnb, because yeah, I mean, you'll get way more space for the family than you will into the hotels, okay? So another question people sometimes ask is, Mark, do I need a visa to actually go to Hungary? Look, if you're from the European Union, obviously not, because they're part of the European Union. If you're from the US, Canada, Australia, you do not need a visa to come here for like 90 days. So you're okay if you want to come, you're going to be all right? So you have that. Now, in terms of what you're going to see when you're here, obviously Budapest is the most important place to see, the capital. It's amazing with the castle up on Castle Hill and St. Matthias's Church. You got St. Stephen's Basilica on the Pest side, where they have the hand of St. Stephen. I mean, it's kind of cool when you think about it. They have that. All kinds of amazing architecture. There's some really cool architecture throughout Hungary, but like Budapest has got so much really cool architecture to check out. The Terror Museum here, I mean, it's a history of like during the communist times and other things of all the oppression and stuff. I mean, it's a really, really interesting museum. I was there multiple times and I highly recommend that. But there's a lot to do here. I mean, it's a big city, eating, drinking. Oh my gosh, you'll have a good time drinking and having a good time in Hungary. I mean, their wine is good. Palinka, like I talked about, the schnapps kind of stuff. So you'll be doing okay when you're here, don't worry. In terms of places to see, this is much more of a natural beauty kind of country. But what's cool is there's an underground cave system like here underneath Budapest with water that you can go in. And sometimes you just take a look. Sometimes you can set up like diving stuff there too. I mean, like, oh my gosh, I never knew about this. One of our fans we met here was like, dude, have you ever thought about going there? I'm like, I never even heard of this. So that's kind of cool. Outside of here, you can go to the Roman ruins that are here, you can go to Eger, which is, I'm sorry my Hungarian friends, I'm butchering the names. Whenever I'd ask the locals, they're like, that's close enough. So they were kind of cool like that, especially when I would try to speak some Hungarian. They're like, that's close enough, dude, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay. So Eger, you have really, there's the castle ruins there, you can see a really cute town. Hölöke is another tiny town that's really worth checking out. I mean, they've really kept all the buildings from like 300, 400 years ago, so when you walk around, you're like, wait a minute, I'm actually back in time. This is kind of cool. With the castle that's there. There's all kinds of national parks you can go check out here, whether they're in the mountains or in the lake districts and stuff like that. There's so much to really see and do outside. The most popular is probably Lake Balaton. Again, I'm butchering the names, please be gentle, but that's a really cool place a lot of people like to go to for outdoor activities. There's just a lot of little towns to check out as well, so you can actually do quite a bit when you're here. But I know most people just come to Budapest for a weekend, and that's okay, but there's more stuff out there, just so you know. Anyway, I hope this helps you know a little bit more about what it's like to come to Hungary. If you want to learn more, maybe 10 things that shock tourists when they come to Hungary, or maybe you want to know about some of the mistakes that tourists make when they come to Budapest, check us out on our website at woltersworld.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we really appreciate your likes and subscriptions. We hope you have a great time here in Hungary, because you will. Anyway, bye from Budapest.